Welcome to Bold Talk series, where creativity, leadership, ideas, innovation come together. My name is Epi Ludvik, and today I have a privilege to have a short one-on-one conversation with Nils Wagner, CEO and REHAU New Ventures. Nils, great seeing you. Welcome to our Bold Talk series. How are you?
Hi, Epi. Thanks. I'm good. Like we quickly chat before, it's hot over here, so I'm doing my best to keep cool.
Yeah, Europe is experiencing a heat wave. Also, New York. I'm originally from New York, so I talk a lot to people in New York, and it's also been hot. So there's definitely something's going on with the whole climate, right?
Well, it depends who you ask, right? Some people will refuse to acknowledge that there's any change, but yeah, I think our environment has definitely been impacted, and I think the human footprint has something to do with it for sure. So yeah, I think to think about how to safeguard our planet is something that, most of us should be investing time and energy into, actually.
Yeah. Well, we all have a certain things that we do in life, and sometimes just a simple act by turning the electricity off when you don't need it is something that's always good to remind people. But that's a whole entire new subject. Niels, I wanted to bring you here and talk about first your journey. This is a short format conversation. So let's start first in your background. So you started out in architecture and eventually made your way to leading innovation ventures. What sparked that shift from designing spaces to transforming industry of the venture?
Well, I think the discipline of architecture actually really brings together different experts from different fields. And really, the role of the architect is to define the common vision and then to lead that team towards achieving certain goals and working towards achieving that vision. Broadly speaking, I mean, that's, something that we as a species tend to do in many different areas. So actually, moving then to the world of industrial production, and then especially when it comes to maybe rethinking the way things are done, introducing new technologies, you're constantly bringing together these different experts. You're, creating that common vision, and you're trying to lead these teams towards achieving those goals. So at the end of the day, it's not that fundamentally different. I'm lucky to be working in an organization that actually is very much involved in the built world. So REHAU, the REHAU Group, we produce a lot of building materials, decoration materials. So for me, I feel pretty well at home, even though I come from the architectural world.
Nice. So Niels, walk us through first, like for people who are not familiar with the ReHow Ventures, walk us through like what type of ventures you look for, and what's the type of criteria that you have for finding those innovations.
Well, REHAU New Ventures is the corporate venturing unit of the REHAU Group. We have been focusing in the past mainly on venture building, not so much corporate venture capital. So we don't typically invest into startups. We actually look for opportunity spaces adjacent to our core business, and then we try and build ventures or startups that exploit these opportunities. And that's where we've been coming from. So typically, anything that has to do with our built world could be more on a material side. Often it has something to do with the supply chain or the planning process. This is where we've been building ventures. Going forward, we're shifting a bit more towards a venture clienting approach. So we've just realized that, within our own organization, there's so much potential for introducing new technologies, improving the way people work, the way people interact with their customers, the way people address the markets, that actually we see that we can deliver a lot of value to our organization. So that's what we're going to be focusing on going forward. We have our portfolio of ventures that we've built, and going forward, we'll mainly be looking for other startups that have solutions that are interesting for our colleagues that work within the REHAU Group.
So you're saying the venture clienting approach. Why do you believe it's such a powerful model for innovation?
Well, it really delivers value very quickly. If we talk about venture building, we're typically talking about a time horizon of at least 5 years to really be able to validate if, this venture has the potential to grow into a business that has any significance that moves the needle for us. I mean, we do about 4.5 billion US dollars of turnover annually. And so, if we build a new venture at one point, it would need to be relevant in terms of size, in terms of impact. And this takes years and a lot of resources to get there. With venture clienting, you're able to look for pain points within our organization that are here today. You go out, you scout for solutions, and potentially you're able to address these pain points with a turnaround time of weeks or months at most. And this is just a completely different value proposition. And in today's world, Epi, with market turmoil, with geopolitical tensions, with really macroeconomic challenges, let's say, we really see that this proposition is just more advantageous for our organization at this point in time. So we've really pivoted and shifted resources away from the high risk, long-term play venture building to the really kind of low risk, fast reward proposition that is venture clienting.
Yeah. So, what do you look for the founders and partners when you work with beyond also the pitch deck and the product?
We've engaged with many founders over the last years that have joined REHAU New Ventures to build a venture. And frankly, what I've learned is that it's really about the founder mindset. Really, it's all about finding people with a truly entrepreneurial spirit, and frankly speaking, with experience. First time founders in our settings, that's not a risk that I would take. We're really looking for people that have experience in the startup world, that have had their wins and fails, and that really, have a very clear view on why they're trying to build something with REHAU New Ventures, right? So really, besides just the mindset, the entrepreneurial spirit, the grit, the tenacity, it really is all about also experience. So I look for very specific experience when I'm looking at a startup when it comes to the founders.
Yeah. What have you seen? What have been some surprising lessons from collaborating with startups while operating also with large corporate structure?
Well, and this is probably not surprising, but it's just very important to understand, in large organizations. So the REHAU group employs about 20,000 people. In large organizations, you speak a different language. You really speak your own language, and you just move at a pace that is defined by your business, which is defined by your corporate processes. And so the whole organization is really geared towards risk mitigation. And when it comes to language, when it comes to speed, and when it comes to risk attitude, let's say, a startup works completely differently, just worlds apart. And so there is per se almost no compatibility between a large corporate and a relatively young startup. And that's where we, as the venturing unit, really act as the intermediary. We understand both sides, we understand both mentalities, and so we really build that bridge so that a collaboration can work, because this is not a natural thing for to work successfully with a startup because of the reasons that I've mentioned.
Yeah. Now, obviously, behind a success of the leader, there's a great team, and great teams come because of great leadership. How do you keep your team inspired when working on the long-term innovation that doesn't always deliver quick wins, right? I mean, it's a bit tricky, right?
Well, I think, in order to maybe keep people inspired, keep their intrinsic motivation intact, it's important to always revisit the vision and mission, which generally addresses the question of why we're doing what we're doing. And this really should instill the sense of purpose. And I think you just constantly need to contextualize that, meaning, what people are doing on a day-to-day basis, which maybe works out one day and it doesn't work out the other day. Always put that back into context with why we're doing this, and what ultimately, our higher goals are that we're trying to achieve and trying to work towards. I find that that's just very important. This kind of creating a narrative, this kind of ultimately storytelling, this is very important, and this is not something that you just, communicate once. This is really an ongoing discussion. And then I find it also very important to you cannot over communicate your wins and fails, right? You really need to regularly share this in different team settings to, first of all, let's say celebrate in a modest way what worked, but then also learn from the things that failed. So we put quite a lot of emphasis on regular communication, and the minimum touch point there is then our monthly town hall where we have the whole team dial in if we're not able to meet physically. And that's where we stretch these narratives and we talk about our wins and fails.
Yeah, I mean, very well said. You cannot over communicate the wins and the failures, and this is also one of the things that a lot of times things fall through the cracks because there's not much over communication, and people just assume that things is done, and then you're going back and things are not done, so it becomes just complicated. So, and sometimes like we think like, "Oh, that's probably too much of a micromanagement," but actually micromanagement is great. It keeps you accountable, right? And so only average people, they don't want to get micromanaged, right? People who are great, they truly want to bring that accountability. I completely agree. Niels, when you look, let's say fast forward 10 years, I mean, with everything that's happening, it's a bit hard to tell, but let's say 10 years, what bold change do you hope REHAU New Ventures helps to create and build in the world?
Well, I think going forward, especially with this venture clienting approach, on the one hand, it's actually, many smaller changes that come together to hopefully support a necessary transformation within our company, within our organization. REHAU was founded over 75 years ago. We used to be startup ourselves. We used to be a tech startup back in 1948. The technology that we were basing our business model and value proposition on was plastics. So a new technology, new processes, and a material that really, ended up shaping our world for the decades to come. And that's where we come from. That entrepreneurial spirit over many, many years and over, many decades of success and a growing organization, I think has, naturally diminished. This is kind of a fact of life. Organizations grow large, risk mitigation becomes very important, and hence the ability to innovate and to reinvent yourself, just diminishes. This
Yeah.
ability atrophies. And if anything, I hope that maybe in the future, 5, 10 years, we can see that we've made a significant contribution to maybe finding back to those entrepreneurial roots, to again finding the courage to reinvent ourselves, to change the way we work. And, hopefully along the way, we'll maybe stumble upon some significant opportunities. And, I'm still confident that, the more we dive into the world of technology and innovation, which is usually happening in this startup ecosystem, at one point, maybe we'll just find a partner, a company, an opportunity that really helps us then to change or develop on a much bigger scale as well. But really, I aim to be a change agent within our organization. I aim to help this organization transform itself over the next few years.
Great. So great to have you here. I always like to ask this last question to my guest, and that is, what does the word bold mean to you, Niels?
Word bold.
Yeah.
It has something to do with entrepreneurialism. And, I was working in China, living and working in China for 8 years. And, the Chinese characters for danger, for the word danger, actually persist of two separate characters. One means risk and the other means opportunity. And this is something that's very important. If you look at an opportunity, there's always the risk that you might fail. But if you're not bold enough to at least give it a shot, you will just never know. Hence, you will never really be successful. So I think, the bold mindset has a lot to do with an entrepreneurial mindset, and it has a lot to do with how you deal with risk in life and also, of course, in business.
Balancing that with the risk and opportunity. Niels, so great to have you here. Thank you for joining me. Congratulations on all your great success and keep up with great work. Until we see again each other next time, have a great summer and be bold always. Take care.